While everyone's joining us and coming in, welcome. Thank you for coming to our very first live chat. I have Ryan O'Neill here with us, just letting people get logged in. So while we're doing that, just wanted to say hello. I also wanted to let you know that today's live chat is brought to you by Mayesh, Wholesale Florist. I'm Yvonne Ashton. I'm the Director of Marketing for Mayesh. And if you follow us, then you may already know that we have recently launched our Floral Fantasy Contest. You come up with a design that you're always wanted to do. The winner will fly out to Las Vegas to create it and have it on display at our Art in Full Bloom charity event, which is raising money for an amazing organization that serves the LGBTQ community of Nevada called The Center. Such a cool opportunity that you don't want to miss out on. We are still getting more people in. I will probably say things backwards. I am sorry. I'm a little nervous, but I'm so—
You're doing great.
Thank you. But I'm so excited to see everyone here. So I also wanted to mention that this works best on Chrome. So if you're not using Chrome, you might want to switch over to that. Huzzah is kind of a newer thing that we're trying out. Facebook Live has a live video now. Ryan, have you seen this? It has 2 people live video. Have you seen that at all?
Sweet.
Yeah.
No, I have not.
It's cool, but it's not as cool as Huzzah. Huzzah still has kind of the step
Exactly.
up. It has, if you guys check it out, there's chat and there is Q&A, which I can't see right now. It disappeared on me, so hopefully it'll pop back up here in a second. Along the bottom, you're able to share this. So if you guys can share this awesome event with your fellow florist friends, that would be amazing. We would appreciate it. Thank you. And if you are watching from Facebook Live, hey, welcome. This is our first live video there as well. So we're super excited about this. But I have to tell you that all the action happens on Huzzah. While we're doing this live chat, I'll be hopefully curating some questions from here. I saw that you guys already had some questions that you posted on the our intro page to register for this event. So I inserted those. I sent them over to Ryan, so we're ready for those. But again, Huzzah is where the action is at. So welcome, Norman, Laura, Hank. I see someone saying Atlanta Jackson. Is that a city? Is that a name? Josie, Tracy Park. Hey, welcome everyone. This is so exciting. I also wanted to make sure that you guys know that this live video is being recorded. And so as things pop up, right? Life happens. So if that happens and you have to leave, you can't watch the whole thing, we'll definitely get the recording up on Facebook and Twitter and all that jazz. We will be there. I still can't see my Q&A. You guys can also do little selfies if you want to wave and say hey to us. Go ahead and do a selfie. I think Allie is going to do one. Allie or John, so that way you guys can see what that looks like, since this is kind of new for all of us. And it is 4:05, so there's John. Hey, John. So I just wanted to say welcome to everyone. This is our first live video chat with Ryan O'Neill. He's from Stemcounter, and today he's going to share his thoughts on how you should be determining your floral markup. Ryan, along with his wife, have owned a flower shop, Twisted Willow, for years. So his experience in the floral industry, paired with his experience building his app, Stemcounter, will bring a fresh perspective to the table. We're super excited to have you. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks so much. This is really, really cool that you guys are putting on this. And we've got a ton of florists, it looks like, who are logging on. And I really think this is going to make a big difference just in the way that we look at markups. And so thank you guys very much for Mayesh jumping in and finding cool, new, innovative ways to be able to share stuff about the floral industry. And welcome to everybody who's on. I'm excited to chat with you a little bit. Very quickly, there's a link at the very top of this, pinned to the top, and it's a link to Stemcounter, specific blog posts that we have. If you want to click on that, that's the blog post we're going to be working a little bit through. And at the very bottom of that, I'll explain a little bit more. There's a calculator. It's some of the premium content from our website that will be able to help you as we're moving through this. But first off, a story. There was a lady I knew all my life growing up, even before I was in the floral industry at all, they would have Valentine's Day and these rushes, and they need some young guys to come and run flowers. And so we'd come, and that was about as close as I got to the floral industry, aside from sending flowers to my girlfriends whenever I needed to. And I knew that she was getting up in age, and she was about at the point she wanted to retire. And so we were always open to looking at opportunities to picking up to pick up a shop or to find ways to be able to help someone out, especially someone that I've known my entire life. And so I went down to sort of help her out as she was sort of looking toward selling her shop. And I began to get into the numbers that she had. And in our town, it was a little town, Blytheville, Arkansas. And in our town, there really wasn't a lot of flower shops. So they were one of the better flower shops in the town. And we began to look through some of the numbers. And as we began to get deeper and deeper in the numbers, we saw how much money that she was investing in all these different areas of her business that logically it made sense to. But when we got down to the bottom base number at the very end of the day, what kind of profit was she bringing in? She was making less than half of any of her employees. She was trying to take care of a husband who was having health issues and who had Alzheimer's, and she sort of had to help him. He stayed around the shop. They had a little place in the back of the shop where he could come and spend the day while she worked. And it hit me that somebody that my entire life I looked at that looks like has an incredible shop, and by all means of artistic purposes, she truly does. But she was struggling in a way that I didn't know before I got in to be able to try to help her out. And so this is something that I fear a lot of times we get a wrong focus on what really matters. And she had a ton of revenue, a great amount of revenue coming in. But when it came down to the numbers, she just was not bringing in enough to take care of her family. And so this is something that as someone who's getting deeper and deeper in the floral industry, I get so scared that florists have so many moving parts. You deal with so many stems every single wedding that it's easy for you to get caught up and say, well, we did good in revenue, but we really aren't looking at the other numbers. So it's easy to be able to focus on these big things. And that's the thing that I want to be able to help today, is sort of shift what the industry normally handles. Now, I'm an implant into the industry. I didn't grow up in a flower shop, so I may be coming with a different perspective than you may hear. So I'm not discounting anything that you're doing. It's just a different perspective that I want to share that I really think is going to help you focus on what really matters. And the biggest thing is, how do you calculate your markups? And for me, the important part of that question is, are you calculating your markups based on principle or based on what somebody else is doing or what somebody else has said, or even a gut feeling that you've made? Now, the principles that are going to be in this are going to help every single listener. But to have a starting point, there's certain assumptions that I'm going to deal with moving forward. The first assumption that we'll be looking at is that you do weddings and events. Now, you may not do them, but the principles in this are going to help you out. But we're going to work from that assumption that you work somehow in weddings and events. And so as we go through some of the numbers and calculations we're going to do here in a minute, do your very best to just imagine, hey, I'm going to separate this portion of my business and work off of this. And then later on, you can take the principles and affect it later. Another thing is that you're an owner-operator. That's one of the assumptions I'm coming in with here. Now, if you're a manager and you're not an owner, that's totally fine. You'll have a few differences, and we can address those as we come up to them. And then another thing is that you've been in business for more than a year. Now, if you are new at business, don't get worried that this is going to count you out, but we are going to be using numbers from the last year. So if you're new, you may have to give some expected numbers that you would like to make. And then the last thing is that you run a lifestyle business. And by saying you run a lifestyle business, that means you aren't planning on hammering away at this for 5 years and then selling your business for a huge profit. This is something you're passionate about, you love doing, and you love spending time in. And now, for us, we do use it as a lifestyle business, but even for us, most of the profit we make currently, we're investing into a shop that we own because we're adding value. It's a really technical tax situation, but it's a great profitable solution. So whatever your perspective is, though, we're going to go from that assumption at least that you have a lifestyle business. So if you haven't clicked the link yet, go ahead and click it. And there is a spot at the very bottom. It's some premium content. It's for our subscribers. We send you a great list of a survey that we put together of 99 florists, how they price, what they do in their process. If you don't want it and you don't want any good content from us, just put a fake email. I don't care, but it gives you immediate access, and it should refresh so that you can get into this calculator. So that's a little bit of the assumptions that we have going into this this talk. Now, I know that there's a lot of questions at this point. Yvonne, was there something specific just that I could take a break here and answer?
Of course. Yeah, I had a question that came in ahead of time from Carrie. She said, same markup for all, or does the type of event factor in? We do everything from special order arrangements, single bouquets to extravagant events. Same or different?
That's a great question. And this is something when we get to the end of doing all these numbers, that's going to become a lot more clear. It comes down to every individual situation. And there are some people that have a very consistent feel that they give to their clients. For us, we literally only do weddings and events. We don't have a wide variety of things. We have a very, very niche group that we serve here in St. Louis, Missouri, in our shop, Twisted Willow. But for some people, if you have different situations, you're going to find that the larger maybe it's a retail operation you're doing, you might see a lower profit margin than you do if you're solely focusing on weddings and events. And in retrospect to that, you'll see that reflect. And when we get done with the numbers here, we're about to go through this calculator. When we get through with the numbers in this calculator, some things are going to really start to make sense and start to click. So let's go ahead and jump into this. If you are at the very bottom of that blog post, the very bottom of it is where that calculator's at that you're going to want to go on. And the first thing, the way you calculate your profit based on principal, 100% hands down, is this. What do you need to make at the end of the day? At the end of the year, you're putting your numbers together. As I said, you're a lifestyle business. You're putting food on your table. What do you need to make to be able to continue in this business? Because if you can't make that, then you need to find different ways that you can make that. Otherwise, you need to make a choice. Am I going to be able to survive on a lower amount? But whatever it is, we're going to start off with saying, hey, here is what we hope to make. Now, that could be $100,000 for you. There are some florists on here who would love to have a $30,000 take-home year. That's before taxes. We aren't talking about taxes. You'd love to have $30,000. And there's some on here that you couldn't be in this industry for less than $150,000. Maybe because of where you live or the different talents and abilities that you have. So the goal is not hey, you have to use a 2.8 markup. That's not what this is about. This is about saying, what do you need to survive as a human being, as a person with a family, as a person who likes to enjoy life? What is going to make it worth your while to stay in a creative industry like this? And so that's the first number you need to be able to introduce. And this is the key thing that some people, it really makes me disagree with the cold industry standard, because you know what you live, you know what you're comfortable with, you know what you can survive on, you know what type of house you live in, you know that better than anyone, and that's a big thing you need to determine. And so what is your end goal? Now, there's two types of end goals. There's a year end goal and a company end goal. Now, if you're taking less profit for a few years because you're going to sell the company, that's one thing. So, but we are specifically looking more in the lifestyle business. So you're saying personal end goal, what do we need to profit? Now, let's say you're a manager at a company. I would say go ahead and say what you would like for your company's profit to be at the end of the year right here. But other than that, say, what do I need to take home to my family? And it flips the script a little bit, the way that we're doing this, because you're not asking, well, what do they do over here? Which is very common. Our best open rates on our email blasts, on our newsletters are, hey, what is this florist over here doing? Because everybody wants to know what that florist over there is doing, or another florist opinion on something. And so it flips the script a little bit. When a bride comes to you asking for help, she's saying this question: how much would it cost for me to buy your time for you to focus on my wedding? When there's an event person that comes to you, they're saying, I don't care about how much your flowers are. I care about how much you are, because I like your style. I like what you can do. I like how you can design stuff. And that's an important factor. Now, there are some things that hopefully your idea isn't, hey, well, what does the person down the street cost? And some people may bristle a little bit and say, well, you can't just charge anything that you want. Someone has to take the bride to her unlimited budgets. So you can't just charge whatever you want and all of a sudden no one has flowers. And I'm okay with that because the market will figure itself out. You're exactly right. There are different models that florists use, but the case in point, if you cannot afford to bring in enough money to stay afloat, you need to find a different job. And that's kind of hard to be able to look at it, but you've got to look at it from that perspective, because here's the thing, that's not fair to you, it's not fair to your family, and your client definitely shouldn't have to deal with the stressed out florist who's venting on florist forums because she's barely able to survive and she's mad at her clients because she's not bringing in enough, when many times your clients would have wanted your talents for a little bit more if that's what it would have taken. So I know that it sort of sets it up a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to set this up, but this is so important. In my opinion, you shouldn't start with the markups. You've got to start with saying, what do I need to survive? So go ahead and in that calculator, enter in that amount. And that could be 100,000, that could be 30,000. If you're just starting out, you don't have any weddings on the books, plan for something lower, and you're going to plan on building that up. But ask yourself, what can I survive off of? So that's the first thing that we have. The second thing that we're going to be looking at on this, and I'm just for purposes of examples, I'm just going to put 100,000 in my calculator that I have in front of me. And the second thing that we have to ask is, what kind of demand is coming in? You know, how many weddings are you going to plan on having this year? And this will help you be able to do the calculations of, if I want to make 100,000 for this year, how many weddings do I need to do to be able to get there? So I'm going to put 100 weddings in this place. Now, don't be too crazy on here. Don't just do something because you're like, hey, I'm so excited, we're going to have 8,000 weddings this year at our local shop. Put something that's realistic. It could be a goal. It could be you looking forward at 2017 saying, hey, I'm ready to turn the corner, make a big difference in my shop. If you're just starting out, depending on your area, you might want to put 10 weddings as the number that you have, 20 weddings. But whatever it is, mark down how many weddings that you plan on having. And the next question on there is your overhead. You have to calculate your overhead. Now, a good example of the difference between your overhead and your cost of goods sold, I was chatting with Yvonne earlier, and we were talking about Mayesh and how they're set up. Mayesh has a marketing department. Mayesh has an administrative department. Yeah. But then there are the actual places that send you the flowers. Now, for Mayesh, their cost of goods sold, any salary of a person that's sending you the flowers, if they've got their hands on the flowers and they're sending it to you, that's something that's a part of their cost of goods sold. That's not a part of their overhead. Their overhead is what you're listening to right now. They invest in money and time into creating something that you're watching that hopefully is going to help your business, because they know if your business is helped, their business is helped. And so that's an overhead item for them. They're marketing, things like administrative work, financial work, things that aren't directly related to what they sell. So that's the technical definition. Now, I am going to adjust that a little bit because the vast majority of florists, they seem to be a jack of all trades. They seem to be everywhere. One minute you could be putting together a bouquet, and the very next minute you could be over doing your taxes or trying to work on stuff that would be. So there's a little bit mixed. So if you're talking about your time, we're going to go back to that original first question, which is how much money do you need to bring back? So don't include that in your overhead. Now, if you have an administrative team member, let's say you have a big enough shop that you have someone completely dedicated to social media, that would be exactly something that you would want to make sure is included in overhead. But if you don't have that, then go ahead and plan on any of the costs of your team members. Let's plan on not adding that in there. Just this is specifically overhead. I like to use the term items that are over your head. So your roof is over your head. If you can't do the taxes yourself, that means they're over your head. So try to find things that fall under that. So let's go ahead and on my calculator, I'm going to go ahead and put in 30,000, and I'll do a follow-up screen share on this once I get finished with it. So we got 100,000 on my calculator for the profit that we want to make. And we've got $100 for 100 weddings for the number of wedding and events we're going to have, and then $30,000 for the amount of overhead that we're going to have. So that's just a little bit into it. We've got one more important number that we want to talk about. Are there any questions at all?
Yeah, I actually have a question from, I believe her name is Andrea. She asked, I'm always in shock about other florist designers that do not charge for labor. How do you recommend labor charges? I do a percentage, especially for wedding and event work, and maybe you'll talk about that.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
that's a great question. So it's a good starter question. I 100% recommend you have to get your labor in. Now we're going to get into some really fun ways of looking at where your markup needs to be at the very end. But just to preface it right now, when the question's coming in, you do want to make sure you include it. Now, some people, I have seen some florists who have included their percentage markup into their as a labor. So they say, hey, labor is 20%, so they add that to whatever the final cost is. I've seen that before. I've also seen some florists that build everything into their flowers. So they do a 4 or 5 times markup on their flowers, and they said, hey, I'm going to make it simple. Let's make sure I get everything in there. The thing that you have to remember, though, is if you build everything into your flowers, the only time you want to do that is if you consistently use flowers in everything that you do. If you do something that has a whole bunch of hard goods, like let's say that they don't want flowers on one of the centerpiece arrangements. Let's say that they have a candle centerpiece arrangement. Well, you aren't going to make very much money off of the labor that you put into that arrangement if you're not charging any markup on that hard good based centerpiece arrangement. So that is the difference where you need to look at it at. You can build it into any one that you want. I mean, technically, if you want to, it's math. So you can just not charge any markup on flowers, no markup on hard goods, and do a huge markup on your labor, whatever you want for your markup on your labor. So that's a little bit how I look at that. And I think that's going to have a lot that we're going to see answered on that after we calculate this final piece. So let me jump back into the calculator here. The last thing that you need on this calculator is what was your average event wedding in 2016. If you don't have any 2016 weddings, you're planning on 2017, go ahead and put this in. Now I'm going to go ahead and put 2,000 on this. And let me see. There we go. Yeah, I've got 2,000 in here. And this is essentially saying, hey, here's what the average is. You might have had, a $20,000 wedding. You might have had, a $500 wedding, whatever your average is. And I realize off the spur of the moment, it's kind of hard probably to estimate exactly what your average was. You can come back. This calculator will be available to you. And once you have more time to sit down and look at your actual numbers. So once you finally have that, you're going to see some numbers get spit out at the very end. And one of those numbers that you're going to see is your cost of goods sold. And this is specifically, as we mentioned earlier, these are the items that you spent money and said, whatever I spent, let's say I spent $35. Well, if your cost of goods is 0.35, then you're going to end up charging $100 for that item. So if it's a $100 item and you have a cost of goods sold, let's change up the number a little bit. Let's say your cost of goods sold is 0.20, $100 item, you spent $20 to be able to make that. And we also see above the cost of goods sold another number that's really important. This is your average gross profit that you need for every event. And the reason this number right here is so important, it's so important because number one, it calculates how much do you need to profit. So in my case, I have $100,000, 100 weddings. I need to profit $1,000 just to take care of my family or just to take care of the bills that I have in this example. And I may go ahead, if it's okay, I may go ahead and screen share really quick so I can walk people through what I did.
Of course. And just to let everyone know, there might be a little delay if you can hear me. But there's usually a slight delay.
Cool. Are you able to see it now?
I can see it. I'm echoey now, though.
All right. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Here we go. And I have $100,000 as the profit. I've got 100 weddings is what I plan to do. We have $30,000 in overhead and then a $2,000 average event. So those are the 4 numbers that matter, those 4 things. So for me, my now average gross profit needed per event is $1,300. Now, 1,000 of this comes from the profit I need to make. And then 300 of that comes from the amount of overhead. And this is basically saying, hey, we've got a $1,500 rent bill that's due every month. So that has to go into my overhead. So on every wedding, on every $2,000 wedding, I'm spending $300 on stuff that's just overhead, that's not having to do with it. Now, if you care about this, you can do it. If you don't, you don't have to. But if you want to say, then, what are my costs for that wedding? Well, $2,000 the average wedding, $1,300 is the average gross profit. You're looking at $700 cost. And whatever that comes out to be, whether that's $500 for product, $200 for labor, whatever that is for that wedding, that's what that's going to come out. And then at the very bottom, you see your markup calculated. Now, I have a very simple form of the markup here. There's some more specifics we'll get into, and we'll have a discussion here a minute on that after I finish discussing this markup. But right here, it says that I needed 2.85 markup. You can ignore the rest of the numbers, but 2.85 is about the markup that I need. So for every flower or hard good that I have come in, I need to add 2.85 to that flower or hard good, and that's going to pull me up to that $2,000. So we can be able to do that. Let's say we discussed 2,000 minus 1,300, 700. Let's just go ahead and do some math really quick, because math is so fun, especially to florists.
I love math.
And so we're going to say $700. Let's put divided by 0.35. Let's see what that equals out to be. That's 2,000. Or another way to say it is $700 is our flowers, hard goods, whatever, and multiply that 2.85. And we see that comes out right at 2,000 as well. So that's a brief, very quick way to look at it. Hopefully this calculator helped you. And now I want to help answer maybe some specific questions. I do want to get a little bit more into some specifics of the three typical types of things you see in the industry. You see a markup on flowers, a markup on hard goods, and then you see a labor percentage are the three big things that you'll see in the industry. But very quickly, does anyone have any questions on the calculator, on these numbers, on your specific situation that sort of gives us an opportunity to jump into this stuff?
I am not seeing any questions right now. But if you guys have any, please post them in the Q&A section right next to the chat. And I'll be able to check those out and get them over to Ryan.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I must have just been such a great teacher.
You're awesome. Doing great.
Right. Nobody needs any help whatsoever. So this specific formula, just to clarify, this only is looking at your floral and your hard good markup. And so I would say that another side to look about this is your labor. And this brings up the question that someone had earlier. Do you build in labor? 100%, you've got to have your labor built in. Don't go down the road of thinking, okay, well, this is what they mark up down the street. They do a 3 times markup. So our labor has to be built in that. You know your labor better than anyone. And here's the thing, the better labor that you have, the more weddings that you can do. And so if maybe you pay more in labor than somebody down the street does. And so that's a big thing to be able to think about is how is my labor being handled here? And what I would suggest on this, in this particular case, you're looking at a 2.85 markup. Let's say that there's $500. I'm going to do some on-the-fly math, so I may mess up horribly, but we're going to have fun doing it. Let's say that we have $500 in hard goods and florals. And this is under the assumption, again, that we are charging 2.85 on both the hard goods and the florals. And I'll address that a little bit as well. But I'm going to say 500 times 2.85. And then we're going to say plus. And then we're going to say we had 200 in labor. Well, that 200 in labor really would be handled the same way in this particular example. But let's say that you wanted to do a percentage instead. So let's go ahead and take that 200 off. We have 1425 is how much that it cost. And then so we want to find out, how do you get from 1425 to 2000? Because in this case, we would need an additional $600, $400, $575 that would be added to that. So we're going to say 1425, let's say divided by 2000 divided by 1425. Let me see if I'm doing this correct. Yep. So you would be looking at a 40% markup. And that's just some quick math, but let me take this off here. That was 1.4 on your markup. Which is you're saying I'm adding 40% to whatever is on the end of that. And that's explained in this article as well that you're already on the page for. But that's a little bit about how to look at it and say that's where my labor markup needs to be, is by calculating how much am I putting in this particular event, in my average event, how much am I putting here into flowers and hard goods, and how much am I putting elsewhere? If we have any questions, let me go see what kind of questions we have. Do we have any questions that have popped up here?
No, you're still good to go.
Okay, cool.
Oh, I just got another one. It says, I'm a little confused on the hard goods markup. Do you mean your vases, or if those are rented out, do you mark up the price you bought them individually?
That's a very great question. So when I typically use the term hard goods, I also mean sundries, just in case we have anyone over the pond who's popping in. And so that's basically the things that you're not getting back. And that's a big reason why that you're able to charge a markup on them. You look at, let's say that you already do a 3-time markup on your flowers. Well, the reason you do a 3-time markup on your flowers is because you're saying, number one, I've got one part of that 3 is I've got to take care of the cost of the flowers. The second part, I'm just giving an example here, but maybe that's having to take care of, insurance on the flowers. If something goes wrong with the flowers, it's your job to fix them. You can't go to the bride and say, hey, it didn't turn out great. And then let's say another markup on that, another one of the 3 is just your profit. This is what I'm making off of this. And so the same thing with the hard goods. Whenever I use the term hard goods, traditionally, and this is based on what I've seen, we've got hundreds and hundreds of users on Stemcounter who I'm able to see sort of an industry-wide perspective of what people are doing. Typically with their hard goods, they're saying these are a candle that I can't use again. These aren't rented items. So that addresses the hard good portion. And then it's a great question on your vases as well. A big thing that you want to make sure on your vases, and this is, I don't have a calculator, or I don't have a calculator built right in front of me right now, but a big thing you want to make sure on your vases is, let's say that you buy a vase for $50 is what you buy it for. I would think by the end of that life of that vase, if you want to keep consistent profitability, and you're doing let me come back down here, a 2.85 markup, and you want to keep consistent, then you need to have made 2.85 off of that vase by the end of that time, and maybe more. It just comes down to, what's my replacement cost of this going to be? Am I going to get my money back in addition to the time that it took me to be able to put into it? So let's say a $50 vase, let's just go, and this is just me playing around. Someone may have a better suggestion. If you have a great suggestion on what you do, I'd love to hear it as well in the Q&A section. But let me go ahead and let's say that's a $50 vase times 2.85. By the end of that life of that vase, if you're going to be consistent with what we've talked about and what you're doing, you need to make $142.50 off of that vase. And so that means, let's say, you know what, I imagine this has a life of 5 weddings. Someone's going to break all these vases by the end of the 5 weddings, just throwing that out there. Then you need to be able to charge around $30 for the vase, maybe $30. That would equal out to be $150. So that's how I would recommend handling your vases. But those are rentals, and those would be consider something different than your hard goods and your items that you're not getting back immediately. Now, if somebody introduces an ugly vase and she wants you to buy it because she can't afford it, you need to charge her the full price. Don't give them a discount of $20 from the $50 vase to $30 for rental if you're never going to be able to rent those out again.
That's great. Thanks, Ryan.
Very cool. Well, let me hop off this screen share and let's see if we have any other questions or any feedback that people may have.
No, I don't have any other questions. Guys, do you have any more questions for Ryan? Great ones so far. This is great. I love it. Jody is currently multitasking and she's saying hello.
Where's she at?
Jody Cox. She says, currently multitasking with Stemcounter as I listen. Hello.
Yes.
I love it.
Let me know if you have any issues, Jody. I'll see if I can help.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Very cool. Well, I've got one more thing I can show if people are interested. I know we still have a good number of, actually the most users that we've had on here so far. But I'd love to just show you a little bit about implementing different areas of markups. Sure. So let me pull it up here. And I'm basically just going to jump into an example event my wife put together, and we will look at what the impact of different types of markups should be. So let me hop into this event, and I'll just screen share. And I'll try to give everyone a brief introduction of Stemcounter. It's just a really souped up calculator for florists, and it's to put.
Ryan? We lost you, Ryan. Are you there? Can you guys hear me still?
Hey,
okay.
Did I lose you?
Thanks, Hank. Yeah, we lost your voice. We could see your screen, but we lost your voice. Maybe try it one more time. Sorry, guys. This is sometimes the trick with this type of technology. It doesn't always work exactly the way we wanted it to, but we're trying. Okay, here, let's see if this goes now.
Cool. Let's try it one more time.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Thanks, Amanda. How do you handle? Ryan, are you?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
There we are. Cool. That was the jump.
Awesome. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, so this is an example proposal here, and essentially the goal of what I'm going to show you right here is to be able to look at what would the difference between different type of markups do. So I'm going to go down. We have 3 different arrangements. We have a bridal bouquet here that currently is equal out to $301.81. We have an arch here that is $19.54, and then we have a head table here. Now this is a little bit more of focus. This head table is a little bit more focused on candles, hard goods, rentals than it is on flowers. This arch is something that's going to take a little bit more time for it. And then this bridal bouquet is obviously more florals. So I'm going to jump up here and let's just play around with a couple settings. So here's the current markups that we have on here. We have a hard good multiple of 2, a floral multiple of 3, and a labor percentage of 20. And this is a really common in the industry markup structure. Different people vary different ways. Obviously, we don't want to change these based on a gut feeling. That would be like trying to treat the symptoms if you aren't having enough profit instead of treating the disease, which is, hey, let's begin at the very beginning and figure out a way. But we're going to play around with these just to have fun. So let's go ahead and say that we didn't have any labor on there. And let's say that we have a floral multiple of 4. Actually, let me go back and walk through these prices one more time just so everyone sees them. So the first one that we're going to look at is going to be, let me add my labor here. First one we're going to look at is going to be the bridal bouquet. It's $301.81, and we can see how this is built in this recipe. By the cost being $250, quantity of 4 of the hydrangeas, and it basically just does the calculations. Initially, the cost is $81 is what we're having to pay Mayesh to say, hey, I want the flowers. And then it ends up being $301 after our particular markups. So let's go ahead and change that, and let's say that we did all of that in just a floral multiple of 4 instead. So we're going to drop down here. And one extra thing, this does have the credit card fee built in. So the price is going to be a little bit higher, 3.5% higher because that's built in. So we're going in here and it's bumped up its price a bit. It's bumped up about $35 by taking off labor, but by increasing it by 1. So increasing our markup to 1. So someone legitimately could have 0% labor, but they build that into their floral multiple. The problem with that is you begin to look at some of these other items, and if it's focused on something that really should have labor built into it, that would negatively affect it. So right here we have an arch that does have several types of roses, so it doesn't look like this arch was affected as much. But if the arch was maybe more of a custom built piece, well, yeah, you're going to hurt a little bit because your flowers aren't being correctly added. This wooden arbor it right now isn't being calculated as a built-in piece. It's actually being added in as a rental item as opposed to a custom-built piece. And let's also look at, let's say that we just want to build in everything into our floral multiple. So currently, this table right here, the head table, is $820.76. So let's go and just remove that hard good multiple off of that. Scroll back down. Let's see what happened to this table. We lost a considerable amount of money here, $100, something like that. Let me go see what my number was again. We lost, $70 off of this table, because if we say, hey, let's build everything into our floral multiple, we have to ask ourselves, are we very commonly putting together items that have a very heavy rental and hard good based structure, maybe like a candle centerpiece? So that's the big questions you have to ask specifically for your company. So that's just a little bit of math and playing around and saying, what does this look like differently whenever we adjust some of these, whenever we adjust some of our markups? All right, am I back?
You're back. Thanks, Ryan. I do
Sure.
have another question for you if you're ready for one.
Yeah, go for it.
From Amanda Allen. Hey, girl. Just a floral and event question in general. In your floral event business, do you charge for floral sets, previews, or floral arrangements, or are they free for booked clients?
That is a very, very good question, because you run into a little bit of an issue when if let's say that you have brides of all ends of the spectrum. Let's say that you get the $25,000 wedding, but you also pick up the $325 wedding. It's kind of hard in your business to be able to have a consistent policy that you go by in those cases. For us in particular, we typically charge. We specifically works in weddings and events in Twist of Willow in St. Louis. And so if somebody asks for something, we'll charge. We may put a lower markup on it, because it's not like we have to show up to the event, and if the flowers aren't as beautiful as we'd like them, that we don't have to have a ton of extras. So we typically charge. However, I can definitely see us. We're moving lower in the number of events we have, and we're moving up in the amount of profit we make and the amount of revenue that we as a local shop are. So in an attempt for that, a big thing for us is we created a welcome introduction packet to Twisted Willow. That was an investment for us. Something like this would be an investment for us to give an experience that's consistent for whatever that bride is, or whoever the person is. So if you get up to a certain point where your profit is going ahead and taking care of those extras that you give, definitely you include that in there. If you're at a point though that your profit still isn't hitting what your first number one goal is, I got to bring home food and put food on the table, then no, don't give away bouquets. And so that's how I would decide that. But it's not a bad idea if you've got the right market. If you've got the profit built in that you can be able to add things like that and serve that market, go for it.
Awesome. I just want to let you know, Ryan, that we can't see you.
Oh, you can't?
No.
It's showing me. Hold on one second. Let me jump off there and jump back on.
Awesome. Again, the beauty of this technology. I still love it though. Are you guys having a good time? Is this good for you? I love it. I cannot wait while Ryan's refreshing. There he is. I would just love to hear your feedback. Send it to me. You can go to our website and use the contact form. We want to do more and more of these. So I just want to hear your feedback on today and kind of what you want to hear in the future. Hey, Ryan, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Are you considering?
You're kind of cloudy.
I think.
Oh, good.
Was there another question that popped in the main chat screen?
I see that someone has a question. Oh, here it is, I think. Oh, wait, hold on. When calculating the profit you'd like to make in 2017, are you considering that this is where you're paying yourself from, or is this, and then it gets cut off? Asha's been trying to send me a question and I haven't been able to get it from her. Is this profit that goes back into the business? Do you want me to repeat that? Are you good?
I think I got it. I think basically she's saying when this first number we're looking at, where is that coming? One of the first assumptions, and I know we keep increasing the number of people who are on the feed, so you may not have caught at the very beginning. One of the first assumptions was that you're an owner operator and it's a lifestyle business. So that under that assumption, yeah, that would be saying this is what's coming home to mama. This is what's putting food on the table. This is what's keeping us living in our house. If you are a manager of a shop, then I would say that you want to look at that as this is what's coming into the company, your profit coming into the company. I typically include in the overhead section, if there's something like rent or we're having to make an investment, I typically try to include that. Now, if you're a big operation, if you're much bigger than us, let me say this, try to say this the best way. It will never be the goal of Twisted Willow to be $1 million operation. That's just not our goal. That's not what we want to do with our life. We don't want to be in there all the time working on flowers every single weekend. So we limit what we do. But if you are that, you will definitely get to a point where you want to start saying, hey, let's make this big purchase and let's appreciate it over the course of years. And you'll start dealing with a lot more technical tax situations. But for the most part, florists don't have to deal with that. And this is what our shop does. It's not tax advice, so please don't take it. But typically our shop does, I think it's section 154. I could be wrong on that. Some other tax nerd can correct me out there. But there's a way for you to be able to automatically write off any purchases that you have, as opposed to extending out over the years. And so that's what we typically do, and we would include that in our overhead.
Great. I have a couple more questions for you.
Cool.
From Thomas, how much do you charge for rental items?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, that was one that we had a similar question to earlier, and it literally hit me. It's something I considered and I had different answers on, but even as somebody was asking the question earlier, it hit me. The way that I would calculate it is I would look and say, what kind of profit do I need to make? I gave a formula to be able to calculate this and say, let's say you want to use your COGS formula. Let's say you have 0.35 for your cost of goods sold. Then you need to be able to take that and calculate out how much do I need to multiply this by. Let's say it's a $10. $10 is easy. So let's say it's a $10 base. So if your markup for everything else is 3, I would suggest multiplying that by 3 and saying, okay, $10 times 3 is $30. By the end of this little base's life, I've got to make $30 off of this. And so the question is, how long is this guy going to stick around? And then I just divide it by that. And that's how I would suggest to do it. That's what you're having to do with anything else. One thing to keep in mind with rentals is you do have to store them. So once you get done with your flowers, they're gone. You don't have to have storage space for that. You don't have to pay for rent for that. So you may bump it up a little bit based on that understanding.
Great, thank you. And I have more questions coming in. This is awesome. I love it. Okay, so David is asking, let me find the original question. How do you handle bad actors in the marketplace? And I wasn't sure what bad actors meant. And so I asked him that, and he said, they're merchants who price things inappropriately low, either by design or out of arrogance. If it's intentional, it's sometimes called predatory pricing, but low pricing out of ignorance can be just as damaging to the local market. How do you handle things like that?
That's a good question. It's a timely question because we definitely see this. That happens. I have one of the biggest questions I have on Stemcounter. Florists immediately go into their workroom view and they see their stem counts and they get freaked out because they're like, is my bride going to see my stem counts? Because if they take my stem counts, they're going to go down the street to whoever this other person is. I almost said Basement Betty, but we started our business out of our basement, and so that would be derogatory to ourselves. But this person who's just trying to get a lower price, and that would be kind of frustrating. The bad part about humanity is you're never going to eliminate bad people. You're never going to eliminate people who are purposely trying to undercut you and hurt you. We personally think that there's a big enough market that we're going to offer benefits. We're going to offer a better experience. And we and this is more of a personal preference, but we typically aren't looking for a bride that's going to want to go down the street and they're going to spend more time. I just wrote a blog post about this. It doesn't matter whether your bride's a $15,000 bride or a $500 bride. There's one thing both of them have in common: the same amount of time. So your $15,000 bride has to make $1,000 at a time decisions. Your $500 bride only has plenty of time, and she can make $35 decisions at a time. And so you're going to get caught up going through all these specifics and trying to compete with somebody down the street. In my opinion, you want to find who your market is. You want to find out, let's say that you do work with budget brides, DIY brides. You want to build a company and a pricing structure so that you have it built in a way to optimize those brides who are flowing through. So you still give them a great experience. Their wedding is just as important as the $15,000 person's wedding. It's a special moment in their life. So I don't want to downplay that, but you do want to find out from my business, how can I create a better churn of these brides coming through here? How can I do better with my business? And that's my best answer on that. I really don't know an industry answer aside from that.
That's great, Ryan. Okay, so it's 4:52. I have a couple more questions. If you guys have other questions for Ryan that we don't get to, just go ahead and post them, and we can do a follow-up. We can do a blog post or something like that. We'll do something to get all your questions answered. But this one, there's two people asking about packages, Philip and Bethany. Philip is saying, should a florist concentrate on doing packages or keep it custom? We may have lost weddings to another shop by offering packages, but like to keep ourselves unique. And then Bethany is saying, I also want to hear about packages. 90% of my brides come to me asking about packages I offer, but since every budget and wedding style is different, packages are just not doable for me unless I'm doing it all wrong.
Yeah, that's a perfect question. And it looks like it's two different angles of the same question.
Yeah.
So how do you handle packing? I'll speak first as a business owner, and then I'll speak second as just sort of a 30,000-foot view of the subject. So as a business owner, we don't offer packages, and we spend more time trying to educate our brides. This is the first time they've ever gotten married, for the most part. So they aren't going to know all the specifics, and it's easy. There's something called the curse of knowledge, and if you've never heard of that, look it up, because it's so easy when you know something to get aggravated at somebody. Why don't you know this? And so there are a lot of times brides will come in and they really don't know how. Do you just give me a package? What options do you give me? So that's a big thing we do is we try our best to educate our brides to let them know we're going to build something custom. However, I have seen some incredibly smart business models where florists have pre-built packages, especially when somebody has a budget bride coming in or they have a DIY bride coming in. And they say, hey, you know what? We're going to offer you a $750 wedding package that's going to give you a bride's bouquet and 4 bridesmaids bouquets and their boutonnieres. And it's going to be under the colors pink and white. And it tells them no flowers whatsoever. And so for that, this goes back to the earlier question, how do you optimize your business practices? This is one of those ways you can optimize your business practices. Obviously, if they're allergic to a particular type of flower, my wife is a florist and she's allergic to wildflowers. And so there are particular types of flowers maybe that you can't handle or deal with, or maybe they have a preference and you deal with it on that customization. I don't think a package, and this is again from a 30,000-foot view, I don't think a package setup is a bad deal, especially if you're trying to process a lot of brides. You may have to get 250 weddings to be able to hit that $100,000 mark. If you don't have large budget brides, and that's okay if that's the market you serve. So that's the 30,000-foot view. Packages are great. If you prefer not to do packages, find a way to educate the bride to let them know this is something we build custom for you. And whichever way you do it, sell it. I mean, totally sell it.
Yeah.
If you're doing a package, sell that. If you're not, sell that.
Yeah, but to Bethany's question, I feel like if 90% of your brides are coming in and asking for packages, but you know you need to customize them, then just maybe set up a few base packages that people can build off of and change, but at least it gives them an idea of kind of where
Right.
things land. I think that's really the why people are drawn to packages is because they, like you said, brides don't really know. This is usually their first time dealing with flowers, other than getting flowers from their fiance or maybe sending something to their
Right.
girlfriends once in a while. But this is like a really big purchase for them, the first time with flowers. So it might be something to consider, I think.
I 100% agree, and that sort of shows my own curse of knowledge. I immediately started thinking in our individual situation, when maybe in a different area than St.
Mhm.
Louis, Missouri, that might be the tradition. That might be something that they commonly come across, and they're
Right.
expecting that from you. So great response on that.
Yeah. And then we're going to try and squeeze in one more question and then I'll close it out, but I'm so excited that the majority of everyone's still with us. So thank you guys. All right. Eileen says, I'm late to the program today. Did you cover credit card addition of fees? How do you handle this with the bride? I think we cannot charge for credit cards in California, but it is a large amount of the order if we have to absorb the cost. What do you suggest?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's first off, the legal side of that. This differs from state to state. Obviously, in
Yeah.
Stemcounter, we try to build it in a way that whoever's using the software can, no matter what country they're in or what state they're in, can be able to use it. So based on that, I don't think that there is anything wrong with realizing, hey, there is a cost associated with this. Some states have laws against you creating a separate fee. But for you to be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm not profitable enough, there's no court that's going to say, well, no, I see the formula you used, and you looked at how much money do I need to bring in, and then you worked backwards. You didn't just tack on a credit card fee on it. And if you've worked through that formula, then that's a legitimate excuse for you to say, hey, I'm not just adding a credit card fee. I just raised how much I charge. Now, our software in particular allows you to add it in if you'd like, or to list it separately. And so you can do whichever you'd like. And then if you just want to completely stay away from it because maybe your state is really ticky on it, you just go ahead and add a little bit more to your markups to be able to take care of that number one goal item of this is how much money I need to make at the end of the year.
Great. Do you have any closing thoughts, Ryan, before I close out?
No, thank you everybody for jumping on here. I mean, this is definitely, I'm a nerd when it comes to number stuff, and so this is always a great opportunity. If we can make life easier on creatives, then that's a huge deal, because that allows everyone who's listening to be able to spend so much more time focusing on creating incredible bouquets, giving incredible experiences to their clients, and not necessarily having to worry so much about this. So thank everybody. Just want to thank everybody for jumping on.
Awesome. And do you want to remind everyone where they can find out more information about Stemcounter?
Yeah, definitely. I know it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's stemcounter.com is the link. We built this out of, my wife is the genius creative. I'm only a third string designer. So, I mean, if it's late at night and she needs somebody else, I'm going to be down there making some designs, but I typically handle more of the marketing and more of the technical aspects. And really Stemcounter came out of that need to be able to very quickly do something that is so convoluted in a creative industry. And so it's made a big difference for our shop and for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you all for watching today's live chat. I'm working on, like I said, planning more. So if you have any ideas on topics to cover or people you'd like to see, or you have something that you want to share with our community, let me know. Please contact me. You can go to our website, www.mayesh.com. and use the contact form there. I hope you visit also to check out our awesome blog articles and videos and all the great content that my team works really hard on for you guys. We also have a new Mayesh design star, which I'm super excited about, Christy Halsey, and she's from Colonial House. She's amazing, and I know you guys are going to adore her once we get started with all her new things that we're doing. And what else do I want to say? Ooh, the recording. I will post it as soon as I have it available. I know some of you guys came late. I know some of you guys had to leave. I will get that out as soon as possible. And if you, again, have more questions and this closes out, just, again, shoot them on over through the website and I will get them over to Ryan and we'll collaborate on them and get out some answers. And again, today's live chat was brought to you by Mayesh. Thank you for coming and I will see you all next time. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Ryan.
See y'all later. Adios.